Thank you, Ryan. Well, Mr. Dempsey had a very intriguing life, starting when he was born in Manassas, Colorado on June 24th, 1895. Dempsey rose to sports stardom in the 1920s as a nomadic traveler from 1911 to 1916. Dempsey began boxing in small mining towns of Colorado under the name Kid Blackie. He emerged from numerous saloon floor boxing matches to reign victorious in over 80 professional fights by the meager age of 24. Dempsey was perhaps best known for his thrilling knockout victories, many of which occurred in just seconds of the fight's onset. Dempsey proved his phenomenal ability in the Battle of David Goliath match of fist. His iron strength and killer left hooks allowed Dempsey to beat Jess Willard in 1919, leaving the giant bewildered and shattered. This victory awarded Dempsey both the heavyweight title and nickname Manassas Mauler, the name that soon haunted potential opponents all around the country. Dempsey became a ring warrior through his tough defense of title 6 times in just 7 years. In most of his matches there were no survivors. A day of disbelief for Dempsey occurred on September 23rd, 1926, when he was defeated by Gene Tierney and lost his heavyweight title. Ironically, this match yielded the largest paid attendance in boxing history. Tierney and Dempsey went head-to-head and fist-to-fist again in 1927 in hopes of Dempsey would reclaim his title. Dempsey lost this rematch, which was coined the Battle of the Long Count, because of the call by the referee that Dempsey did not return to a neutral corner after Tierney had fallen. Tierney won the match 3 rounds later. Dempsey continued boxing in exhibitions after his debut but retired for the professional boxing in 1940 and went on to be a successful restaurant owner in New York. Dempsey retired with an outstanding record of 60-7 and 8 ties. 50 of those wins were knockouts. He was universally accepted sports star. With his bobbling, weaving stance, amazing speed, graceful agility, and pure power, Jack Dempsey will forever remain the perfect boxer and one of the greatest box attractions of all time. Ruth was born on February 6, 1895, in Baltimore. Ruth spent much of his time on his own and got in trouble frequently. Unable to control their son's behavior, Ruth's parents placed him in St. Mary's Industrial School at age 7. Ruth hated the regimented discipline of the school, but he learned the game of baseball. By the age of 15, he was playing both catcher and pitcher for St. Mary's varsity team. At age 19, Ruth was spotted by Jack Dunn, owner of the Baltimore Orioles, the International League, who signed him to his first professional contract. Ruth spent only 5 months with the Orioles before he was sold to the Boston Red Sox. During 3 seasons in Boston, Ruth was primarily pitcher in his first World Series. He pitched 29 2/3 scoreless innings, breaking Christy Matheson's record and setting a new mark that would stand for 43 years. The Red Sox won the World Series that year and again in 1918. In the 3 regular seasons, Ruth had compiled a record of 94 wins and 46 losses. But despite his stellar performance as a pitcher, he was already developing a greater reputation as a hitter. He played some outfield and some first base during the 1918 season. Playing exclusively outfield for the first time in 1919, he set major league record with 29 home runs, but Red Sox finished far behind in the pennant race. Following the 1919 season, Red Sox owner Harry Fraz sold Ruth to the New York Yankees to raise money for his Broadway theatrical productions. The sale of $125,000 was more than double what any team had paid for any baseball player prior to that time. It would prove to be one of the worst business decisions in history. Prior to that trade, the Red Sox had won 5 modern post-1903 World Series. The Yankees have never appeared in one yet, let alone won. It took Red Sox until 2004 to win their 6th World Series. With Ruth, the Yankees won their first pennant in 1921 won another in 1922, and their first World Series in 1923. In 1920, the Yankees became the first team in baseball to attract 1 million paying fans in its stadium. The Polo Grounds, which they shared with the New York Giants, when the Yankee Stadium was opened in 1923, it became known with good reason as the house that Ruth built. After several spectacular years, Ruth had health problems in 1925 and his home run output declined to 25. Some people began to suggest that Babe was past his prime, but Ruth returned to the form in 1926 and in 1927 set a single season home run record of 60 that would not be topped until Roger Maris hit 61 in 1961 in a season that was 8 games longer. In 1930, Ruth was earning a salary of $80,000 a year, spectacular number in that era. Reports suggest that perhaps he was overpaid, since Herbert was only getting $75,000 as President of the United States. Ruth is reported to have replied, "Why not? I had a better year than he did." In the Game 3 of 1932 World Series against the Chicago Cubs, Babe was batting in the 5th inning. After a pitcher, Charlie Root, took him out to a count of 2 strikes and 2 balls, he appeared to point to center field and shout something at Root. He hit the next pitch about 500 feet into the stands behind center field, the longest home run ever hit at Wrigley Field. Ruth wanted to manage a major baseball team following his career, but after opportunity never arrived, his production began to fall and he ended his career with the Boston Braves in 1935. At that time, his retirement, his regular season record of 714 home runs was hundreds ahead of his closest competitor and would not exceed until Hank Aaron hit 715 in 1974. His lifetime slugging average of .690 has never been approached. When Baseball Hall of Fame was integrated in 1936, Ruth was one of the first of 6 inductees. After baseball, Ruth lived a quiet life with his second wife, Claire. He had married his first wife, Helen, in 1914 when he was 17-year-old, when she was a 17-year-old waitress. She had a couple. The couple had separated by 1926, and the marriage ended tragically when Helen died in the apartment fire in January 1929. Ruth married Claire within 3 months. They remained together until his death. During the fall of 1946, Ruth was diagnosed with a malignant tumor on his neck. His health began to decline quickly. Baseball fans honored him on April 27, 1947, which was declared Babe Ruth Day for every organized baseball league in the United States. His jersey number 3 was retired at last appearance at Yankee Stadium on June 13, 1948, which also commemorated the stadium's 25th anniversary. Ruth died in August 1964. 48. More than 100,000 people paid their respects at Yankee Stadium and at his funeral in St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. I then close